Ivory Coast. I feel like they got elephants there.
Well, that's their nickname.
Oh, yeah, the soccer. Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
I mean,
wait a second. I don't have any snare in my headphones. Ty, I have no snare in my headphones.
no snare? Wow, here we go. Open wide for some soccer. That's right, everybody. We're here at the Sports Experience Podcast. I'm your co-host, Dom DiTolla, with my co-host, Chris Quinn, and we are going to get down on some soccer action on the pitch today.
That's right. And this one's one of my personal favorites, one of my all-time favorite players. I feel like that's why I kind of threw this guy in here, but he has quite the story. Talking about Didier Drogba.
Didier Yves Drogba Tebili.
Yes, quite the full name.
I feel like after you say his name, you should just go, ha, ha, ha.
Well, he's from the Ivory Coast, which was populated pretty much by all French colonialists, if you will.
I mean, West Africa along there on the underside.
On the other side, yep.
French-speaking, French for a while, so he has a cool name like this.
Exactly. Born March 11th in 1978, he was a member of the Beti people, which was a collection of
different tribes, all in these countries. Yeah, didn't go full Hotel Rwanda there, which is good.
No, and that'll come back later.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting. His uncle was a professional soccer player in France, and when he was 5, his uncle said, we should give this kid all the opportunities that he can't get in the Ivory Coast, so bring him along with me and let him live with me in France, and it was a mixed bag.
It was a bit of a mixed bag, a little empire coming home for positivity situations. He eventually at 12 went to live with his uncle in France, I had read.
Yeah, well, I think it was interesting because his uncle was a player that was like moved every single year.
Yeah.
So he pretty much had to move every single year, and then it came. So this is what happened. He moved there when he was 5, and then moved back like immediately, or not immediately, but like a year later, to live with his parents back in the Ivory Coast.
Yeah.
And then they both lost their jobs when he was about 10, 11. So then he moved back with his uncle in France when he was a little bit older.
Yeah, Michel Goba.
Yeah.
I had read that was his name.
And he ends up meeting up with his parents later in France. It's so interesting because it's a very common immigrant story of departing with your parents and then meeting up with them later when they get more established in what becomes, I think it's a ghetto in Paris.
Yeah, something to that extent. He's like a little soccer hot potato.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and this is what people said was it stunted his early development, and we'll bring it up later when he plays for Le Mans, is he doesn't have this youth training that a lot of people have.
I kept reading the phrase late bloomer in regards to him, and not necessarily because of his talent, but because of how little organized soccer he played growing up.
Almost none, which is what his uncle was trying to get him to do when he moved to France the original time, but then moving back to Ivory Coast, there was obviously like no organized. He said him and his buddies just used to play out in the street all the time, and he used to dominate.
Yeah.
It was one of those kind of
Ray for Austin situation.
Exactly. One of those situations. And
Skip to Malou.
So he plays, he finally gets, it's called like a youth team tryout. And I want to say the coach from that youth team said that he had an ability of keeping his fitness.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that stems from not playing organized soccer
or any organized sport whatsoever. Yeah. So that it's interesting that we kind of disregard that. But like coming up, like me and you, we actually, not now, I'm pretty fat, but back in the day, we used to like coming up, we were essentially ready to play any sport because
you're playing sports year round almost.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. So you have that overall fitness that he almost didn't have, and he moves to I forgot where Le Mans is, but he moves there to study accounting.
Yeah, I had read that, and I was like, "You son of a bitch!" All right.
Well, he didn't think he had any future in professional soccer. He thought he would be maybe a semi-pro. Maybe.
Kind of behind the curve, though. They probably ingrained that into him. Like,
exactly.
You don't have enough experience.
Exactly.
You're not good enough to play.
And at this point, he's also getting to that age where people kind of don't want to put they don't want to take a chance on him. He's 19. You know, he's kind of
he's a little bit
wild.
older. It's almost like those Latin American and Caribbean players who very rarely get contracts at like 18, 19 if they're good.
Exactly.
For baseball. So
he starts playing as an intern player at Les Mens, which is pretty much they pay you like nothing. They're barely
like a League Two club, it said.
Yes,
and I'm assuming that's lower. I'm still coming to grips with how they name these leagues. I'm assuming it's lower, but
I wanted to bring this up. So in France, it's League One, and then the French Division League One.
Oh my God.
And then French Division League 2. So technically this is the third division. And I wanted to bring this up because I know how confusing it is.
It is so confusing.
And they do it on purpose in France. So he's all the way in the third division, is pretty much making nothing. And this is when the Les Mens, this is the quote that I wanted to see, was that it said he struggled with injury and fitness for about 4 years. So with the club before and then 2 years at Les Mens, they pretty much said that that's how long it took him to get physically fit.
Jeez, 4 years? That's a long time, dude.
Well, he kept getting injured, and then he kept his essentially getting to playing fitness just never came around.
Oh, wow.
So he goes to a different club, which was surprising because at Les Mens he didn't really play. I think he ended up scoring like 5 goals.
Yeah,
so like
he didn't score very often. He barely got to play. He was just kind of like a reserve player on like a third league team,
exactly,
or third division team, whatever they call it.
But this second division team, Dom's just getting angry with it. The second division team it's almost like when you see it, and I love the basketball analogy. It's almost like when you see someone, you're just like, well, that guy's 6'8". And has a wingspan of like 7'2".
Yeah.
Let's see what he's going to become. That's what Drogba was. He was like 6'4", and he was like, I think he's actually 6'3", but he was like a powerful center forward that could score. And this team came in smartly, paid 80,000 euros for him.
Yeah, well, it's like Gwing something. I can't pronounce it. It's too French for me.
Gwinump,
yeah.
And that's when, and this is when he becomes the central focus of their attack, and that's when he kind of displays like, oh shit, this guy is like, could be seriously good.
And it said they got him for only like 80,000 pounds, which in terms of soccer is not a lot of money.
But it's very common for like a third division player to go to the second division player. But then we see how good he is, and this is when Marseille come in and they have a influx of money, and they're trying to essentially like reinvigorate this club that was once one of the top clubs in France, but now is kind of mediocre. And they go out and they try and pick up all these young, like potentially great players, and Drogba immediately becomes their top player.
Yeah, they got him for like I said, 3.5 million pounds.
Yep.
They I guess saw something that nobody else did.
Well, so let me talk about this because I'll bring up Jose again. Jose was coach Jose Mourinho, who's going to coach Chelsea. He was coaching FC Porto at the time and wanted them to go and pick him up because he felt like he had just miles of potential. That's what everybody kept saying about him, was he's just all potential.
Yeah.
And Marseille came in and was just like, well, we'll try and we have the money essentially to give this a chance.
That's awesome, though.
And he had one of his best seasons with Marseille, scoring 19 goals and grabbing the Player of the Year in France.
That's pretty impressive, though. I mean, that's really good.
Well, just we kind of alluded to it early, just the non-playing from essentially 12 to 17 or whatever it was, 16, this jump was so big.
Because I'm assuming between 12 and 17, as you can tell, who the top soccer players are going to be down the road.
Yep.
That is just insane.
Well, he had a buddy at I think it was at Les Mens that comes back and plays with him, Maluda.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Maluda said that they were both joking around saying that, wouldn't it be cool if we get to the French Division 2? Like that was their
wow, that was their goal.
Exactly.
Oh,
like that's kind of what they thought their quality was. And Drogba, as soon as he essentially was given a chance and he's one of these top clubs, he just dominated.
Oh, totally.
And then, so he plays 1 year with Marseille, and they retire his jersey.
Yeah, it said he was scored 5 in the UEFA Champions League and 6 in the UEFA Cup.
Yeah.
Like, that's, wow.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He had a season that showed that he was great. In this summer, so he plays 1 year with Marseille. In this summer, Jose Mourinho goes to Chelsea, and he's like,
now I can get him.
Now I can get him because Chelsea has, at the time, they were one of the richer clubs.
Yeah.
So Jose goes in, and Marseille smartly puts a high price tag for him, especially for the time, which was $24 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
And people lit Chelsea and Jose up, saying that it was one of the biggest wastes of money.
Oh, wow.
So before this, Roman Abramovich's favorite player was this guy named Andrei Shevchenko, and he was about 30, 31, and he played for AC Milan almost his whole career. And as soon as Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea, he wanted to buy this player, essentially like you're playing FIFA or whatever game, and you're like, that's my favorite player. I want to buy him. That's what he did. And AC Milan put a crazy price tag of like $30 million, which at the time was crazy for the top player, and this guy was past his prime. So people thought this was essentially like the same Chelsea just wasting money.
Totally.
And Jose came in and was just like, no, give us, a couple of years, and then you can kind of talk shit if he's garbage. And then they proceed to win 2 back-to-back titles.
I read that. Yeah, he was pretty dominant in those seasons. And it was their first championship, the first one in 50 years.
In 50 years. And it happened 50 years later. That's why I love it.
Exactly 50 years?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it was 2005, and then, 55. It's the timing of Chelsea is pretty awesome.
And he had 16 goals in back-to-back seasons.
And this is what I want to talk about, because some people kind of talk shit on him not having 20-goal seasons because he's like the out-and-out striker. But the way that this Chelsea team was built, this 2005 and then 2005-2006 team, was all defense. And he pretty much was the man that held up the ball. And I haven't seen anybody do it the way he does, which was hold possession until essentially your entire team gets set up.
Oh, wow.
And he is one of the best players at that, and one of the best players at taking defenses out so other people can score. So not essentially assisting, but
just diverting
attention.
And then the tactics as far as like, oh, these people are open because they're set up this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what and a lot of people think that these 2004 to 2006 Chelsea teams are one of the best Premier League teams ever, with this Man City team and the Arsenal Untouchables or whatever.
Oh, yeah. I
hate
remember
them,
we talked about that. Yeah.
But those are like the 3 teams that are thought to be, the best. I'm not even going to bring up a Manchester United team because they just are annoying. So 2006, 2007 season,
he goes off,
but Chelsea actually kind of has a down season. And this is what I find so interesting is the cracks start to show at Chelsea, in which the owner starts to not go with the program that the coach wants. So Jose wants Drogba up the middle and a shit ton of wing play.
Yeah.
The owner sells a bunch of wing players and doesn't replace them.
No.
So that's why Drogba pretty much goes off this season, because he was one of their only outlets.
Yeah.
So he's actually talked about this season, and because people were like, oh, that was one of your best seasons. And he was like, no, it wasn't, because we ended up losing the title. Like, I really don't give a shit how many goals I score. I want us to
he's
win.
A team player.
Yes.
Yeah, because it said he had 33 goals and he won the Golden Boot, which I believe the first Chelsea player since 84-85 to score 30 in a season, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, he actually holds the Chelsea all-time scoring record for a season.
Hey everybody, just want to take a quick break to let you know that our Sports Experience podcast is brought to you by Engle Studio here, and they're here in Tucson for all your recording needs.
And City scored the game-winning goal against Manchester United in the FA Cup final as well.
Well, I want to bring this up too, so I'm going to go back because I like to go back. I like to go forward. I like to, 2004, 2005, they do the double.
Yeah.
They win the league. They win the League Cup.
Yeah.
2005, 2006, they do the other double. They win the league. They win the FA Cup.
Nice.
And it's one of these things where you almost never see it happen like that. This team that is so dominant.
Yeah.
And then the next season we see the cracks start to come in and they lose pretty much everything but the FA Cup. They beat Manchester United in the FA Cup. And then 2007, 2008 is when Jose leaves.
Oh, okay.
And this is the first time that we see...
Yeah, he started to get a little salty at him leaving. Like, apparently he was crying in the locker room.
Well,
like...
it's the first time we see him go out publicly against his club.
Yeah.
So, and there's never had been a reason for him to, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, you're winning and you're doing well. Why not?
And he said, he was like, a lot of people thought he was going to go to Real Madrid. I really thought he was going to go to Real Madrid. But he said it in tears, it's devastating. Mourinho's departure destroys a certain familiarity we had with the club. Many of us play for the manager, and people were pissed.
Yeah.
Because it's true for these soccer guys, but like as a fan, you're like, no, you play for the club. But
exactly.
In this era, that's why people kind of don't like Mourinho, is he almost takes over like loyalty.
Yeah, he takes it away from the club because he's so beloved by his players.
Yes.
It seems like.
And a lot of
kind of personality.
The talk that came out was that Jose called him and was like, "Hey, I don't think you want to move because other clubs won't really know how to use you." So he ends up staying.
Okay.
Yeah, so like because him and Jose are like really good friends, even outside of this.
Yeah, and it said he re-signed a 4-year contract with them.
Yes.
So I mean, he re-upped. I mean, although it had to be devastating to lose your coach. And
Yes,
friend.
and yeah, that was the thing. Was Drogba said that he was like the first coach, like top coach, that like really adamantly went out to bring him all the time to his club.
Yeah,
Like he wanted him essentially all the time. So that's
you can't have him.
yeah, exactly. So I'm going to stop right there with the club talk, and now we're going international.
International. Let's
And
do
this
it.
is when he kind of breaks that barrier of sports.
Yep.
And that's why it's so awesome. So Ivory Coast, what's their Coupe de la Vie or whatever
Coup d'etat?
the French fucking
Oh, the name of the country?
Yeah.
Côte d'Ivoire. I don't know.
yeah, it's Coupe d'Ivoire or something like that.
I don't speak frog. I'm sorry.
It's the Ivory Coast. They don't either. They speak African French.
Exactly.
Damn it. So 2006 World Cup Qualifier.
the first one they made too.
The first time they ever made it, they win against Sudan.
Yeah.
And he makes... So, like, I kind of want to talk about the way African games are.
Okay.
They have problems with riots, and they have problems with stampeding.
Stampeding. Oh, I mean, I've heard about soccer riots in Europe, though.
No, but this is different because they don't have policing there to the extent.
okay.
So
All
there's
right. So
problems with various. Essentially, that's why stampeding is a problem, is because like shit goes down and people just like freak out.
So it's like that Anchorman fight where it's just like, boy, that escalated quickly.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this happens later on. But I'm bringing this up because right after they win, they immediately go to the dressing room, in which a lot of European, after they win, they kind of celebrate out on
Yeah.
the field. That doesn't happen in a lot of Africa because they're just like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here.
Let's get the fuck out of here and not die.
So they immediately go to the dressing room. Drogba grabs a camera and he has this plea that he does to the Ivory Coast nation. I've actually wrote it down. This is exactly what he said. Him and a bunch of the players get down on their knees. This is their golden era.
Yeah.
Solomon Kalulu Toure. I know I fucked up his first name. But he was like the Barcelona's central
cool.
midfielder. So they all get down on their knees and he says, "We've proven today that the entire population of the Ivory Coast can live together, play together with the same goal. Today we're begging you from our knees. A country with so much wealth cannot lose itself into the darkness in a war like this one. please put down your weapons and hold elections and everything will improve.
Because it was a civil war.
It's a civil war that was going on for 7-8 years, I think.
Yeah, it'd been a while.
And this was, so like the fantasy side of it is like Drogba stopped the civil war. The realistic side of it was he got them to actually put down their weapons to start to negotiate.
Yeah, they had like a ceasefire.
Yes,
yeah.
They had their first ceasefire, and then it led to the Civil War ending.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Yeah, when I read about that, I was like, my God.
It's probably one of the greatest things that someone outside of soccer did.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I think a lot of people like look at Maradona, and this is the guy I like to equate him to, is because in the Ivory Coast he's looked at as like more than a man.
Yeah,
because he's done so much.
Only he's not having orgies with cocaine.
Exactly. He actually is one of the most straight-laced home persons. Like, he has a wife and 3 kids.
Yeah, he's been with his wife forever.
Never. No. He is, that's another reason why I absolutely love him. But just to bring it all the way back, he said when he was a kid, his first ever jersey was a Maradona jersey.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because those, after that 86 World Cup, were just going around.
Yeah.
So, like,
oh my God, that's so cool. Because he would have been like 8 years old. So, like, who else's jersey are you going to wear?
Exactly. And it just kind of comes back because he said, going back, and you could see video of him going back to the Ivory Coast, it is like pandemonium when he shows up. And this is something else that he does, and I'll get more into it, is he is huge into charity back in the Ivory Coast.
Yeah, he's way into that. Like, he's almost Akon of soccer.
Yes.
For charity in Africa.
Yes. So they make it to the 2006 World Cup. Civil War ends, and then they get essentially the worst draw. So they
Group
get
of death.
The group of death. And that's what everybody was saying, was this Ivory Coast team was so good that if they had gone into a different group, they would have made it out first or second.
Wow.
They end up getting third in this group because they go up against Argentina, who we are just referencing.
Messi was probably playing for him.
They lose. Yep. This is the Germany World Cup. They lose 2-1 against that was the other thing, was like people were saying like those games are really good. They lose 2-1 against Argentina, and then they lose 2-1 against the Dutch, the Holland, the Netherlands.
Whatever you want to call them.
And they
didn't
said
speak the freaky deaky Dutch.
Exactly, that these games were so close that Ivory Coast could have went on. They end up beating Serbia and Montenegro before Serbia broke off, and
Montenegro broke off, but yeah.
Yes, you're right. So there you go. I always do that. I always mix those two up, even though I knew that. So their World Cup ends. They go on to 2008 African Cup, and the coach goes out for personal reasons. I think his son had a heart attack or something. And Drogba becomes the first player coach.
Wow.
So he kind of just takes over that role.
So he's going Pete Rose without the gambling.
There you go.
All right, Drogba.
I was going to say, he's doing all these American athlete stuff without
without the horrible things.
Exactly. He has all the great things.
Poster boy for good decisions.
And then we go back to Chelsea.
Yes.
So we're kind of floating around.
2008.
A lot of people feel like his... So I want to talk about the 2006 season where he dominated. A lot of people feel like that was his best season because he won a slew of awards.
Yeah.
And I brought this up, and he felt like it was one of his not worst seasons, obviously.
Yeah, no, he's not going to go out there and be like, God, I fucking sucked. But it's probably a disappointing for him because they didn't win.
He felt like the League Cup, because this was the first time he won the African Player of Nations. Mm-hmm. And then he also won the Player of the Year for the Premier League, and then lost to Ronaldo for the overall Player of the Year, and
which is still very good.
But he said after winning all of that, he still wanted the Premier League, and that's what Jose said that he loved about him as a player, was he was this team constant team player.
Yeah, you always want to win.
And then, so we get into 2008 season where Chelsea lose to Barca in the Champions League, and this is one of the worst refed games ever.
As a Chelsea fan, you can attest to that.
Oh my God, it's the worst.
Were they flashing all those colored cards or just missing shit? Or
they
what?
were missing shit and missing, like there was a couple of calls on Chelsea that were just awful, and Drogba after the game essentially hounds the referee and like yells at him like you wouldn't. And this is so rare for almost any professional, but like the refereeing was so egregious.
Then it must have been bad if he was criticizing him. I mean, if it's so out of character for him, it must have been pretty bad.
Yes, and that's what everybody was saying. So he gets suspended for 6 Champions League games, and this is how bad you could tell was the UEFA came out and like lessened it to 3 because they were like, yeah, we understand how bad it was. And there was like kind of talks about certain referees wanting Barca to win because of various, like that's kind of what the state was at that point.
I'm starting to believe soccer has like the most crooked refereeing of any sport.
And they're desperately trying to get it out all the time. This one, people are saying like some people say it was crooked, some people say it was just like a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
It's hard to say.
And you can make that argument a lot too. I mean, sometimes just don't see shit.
Yep. 2009-2010 season, I believe this is when Scolari comes in and pretty much benches him.
Yeah.
So there's a point where Chelsea keep going through these coaches after Jose, and Scolari just does not think he's a good player. So
right.
And it's kind of the way his formation sets up. He doesn't set up single through the middle. It's interesting.
Scheme based.
It's scheme based.
But if it's your best player, man, you got to tailor it to him somehow.
That's what people were saying. So Scolari actually is out pretty quickly, and Gus Hiddink comes in, and he finds his form under Gus Hiddink. They win the 2009-2010 season.
Yeah.
And this is coming back to the 2010-2011 season. I'm kind of going through this a little bit quick because his stuff is. I'm trying to not get dredged down in the Chelsea stuff. How about that?
Okay.
So they win the Champions League, and in 2010-2011 for the first time ever, with Drogba scoring a goal in the 88th minute to tie it.
Yep.
And then Drogba scoring a goal in the penalty kicks.
The last penalty kick.
The last penalty kick. So to bring it back to the last year, or I think it was 2 years ago, we lost to, I'm going to say we now. We lost to whoever in penalty kicks, and Drogba got out because of a
he was out for arguing with the referee. Yeah.
And John Terry ended up taking his kick and missing, and this was the redemption essentially.
Yeah, lost Champions League to Barcelona.
Yeah.
Barca. Yeah.
Yep. That one was awful. That was just another one of those that was just. So I just want to say he had 9 goals in cup finals.
Yeah, no, he was always a money player. I had read that, and he had the same amount of goals as games played, which is
cup
for
final
soccer.
plays. Yeah,
which is ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, no, this is why he was always my favorite. And then this 2009-2010 season in which they won the season, he had 29 goals. He had 15 away goals. Like he was a goal scoring machine when they needed him to be, and was a team player when they needed him to be.
That, which I think is so cool and speaks to his skill set and unselfishness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get out of him. So wins the Champions League, 3 Premier League titles, I believe 3 FA Cup titles.
Yeah.
Just pretty much like a storied career. Anybody would want half of these. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we get into him being one of the first players to move to China. This is where I wanted to get to because it's a little bit of controversy with this shit. There was a little bit of controversy with his move from Marseille to Chelsea, but this was kind of before these mega deals were scrutinized. Yeah. So they really didn't do anything illegal. They just did kind of some backwater shit, if you will.
They went to Shanghai, joined the Chinese Super League.
He goes to Shanghai and plays, I think he plays like 14 games. So he plays with his buddy Anelka, who used to play at Chelsea. They kind of meet up. And then in the summer, He signs for Galatasaray,
Yeah.
which is a team out of Turkey. Shanghai says if you sign for Galatasaray, you're void of our contract and we could sue you. He says that the Shanghai team owe him essentially his entire salary from this last year that they've never paid.
Oh my God.
So that's why he was like, well, I'm looking for a new club because you literally have never given me a single paycheck. And he had to have UEFA step in and pretty much nullify it because
I think there's a word for that, where you don't get paid for the work you do.
Shanghai.
Starts with an S, though.
But this is what people were talking about with the Chinese league is they would not pay players, and then it was hard for them to get repercussions for it.
Yeah, or have the players get out.
Yes. Yeah. So Drogba essentially gets UEFA to step in because he's such a name and gets Galatasaray to step in and be like, hey, we're going to bring him to Galatasaray. So he leaves China, but he's one of those first giant players that goes to China in this era that's kind of over. But before Oscar and Hulk and all these giant players, that might be another episode is fucking the Chinese trying to, they like put billions of dollars into trying to buy these big ass players and then pretty much shot themselves in the foot. They're like, all right, and now we're just going to do two non-domestic players for each team. And everyone's like,
smart.
What? Yeah.
I mean, for economic purposes, it's smart.
Because they burned a ton of money.
And I know that's what the, I don't know if it's for economic reasons, but I know in the Japanese professional baseball league, you can only have two non-Japanese players on your team.
And well, they were trying to, like in the Japanese, they were trying to build the overall play.
Yeah, exactly.
But they did it at the worst time. We that's another podcast. God damn it, Chrissy tangents out. So he goes to Galatasaray, faced with a ton of racist chants. This is
really, there's racism in soccer?
This is very prevalent in Turkey.
I can see that.
And it's prevalent because they don't do shit. So they don't. Yeah. They're just like, yeah, that's just the way it is. Aren't you black? Like that's kind of their.
Oh God.
It's the worst. Yeah. They're really bad with it. But he actually wins the 2012-2013 League Cup, or the Turkish League Cup. The Galatasaray beat their rivals Fenerbahce. Yeah. Just to get some names out there. So he is consistently winning for these clubs that he's going to outside of Shanghai, but that
doesn't count.
Exactly.
China doesn't count, everyone.
He got Shanghaied. And then from Galatasaray, he goes back to Chelsea because guess who comes back?
Mourinho or whatever, yeah.
Jose comes back and he's like, why are we not picking up Drogba? He goes out and picks up Drogba for free. Yep. And pretty much plays him like he wants to play him in a substitute kind of role.
Yeah, I mean, because at this point, he's like in his late 30s.
Yes.
But,
with his late start, we see his career going a long ways, but he's past his prime at this point.
Yeah. But it's still great for him to reunite because he plays through 2015 for him.
Yep.
And it said in his last game, he was carried off the field.
Yeah. It was one of those really special moments for... I imagine for him, I can't imagine what, like I said, with him and Malouda talking about, like, wouldn't it be cool to be in the French Division 2? And like,
then you're in the Premier League, like, oh my God.
And they were talking about the trajectory was so, like, it was like overnight.
Yeah.
It was like 1 minute we were bullshit players and the next minute we're like multi-millionaires. So he goes to the MLS, plays for the Montreal Impact. He was actually their designated player. Just the way the MLS kind of has it, like we were talking about. They have one player that is outside of the salary cap.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably to sign bigger names and get people. I mean, upstart sports leagues do that all the time.
Yep.
So.
They put it in for David Beckham, and then a bunch of other teams try to do it with players like Didier Drogba. But he was definitely, like we said, he was past his prime. And then we see him go to the USL team, Phoenix Rising.
I saw that. He played up in Phoenix. I wish I would have known about soccer.
Yeah.
Gone and seen him play.
I got to see him play one time. It's the only time. Well, and I wanted to bring this up because he's somebody that I've loved for years and years, and I've never seen him play, and I got to go up and see him play one game.
Still awesome, man.
For the Phoenix Rising. Yeah, exactly. He was actually the first ever player owner in history because he was minority owner of the Phoenix Rising.
Look at him go. Magic Johnson in it up.
There you go. And that's where I want to end because he was such a great guy, one of my favorite players ever, and on top of it, one of the best humans, I would say, to play the sport. You got anything?
No, man, I just was looking over his stats to have 104 goals for Chelsea in 226 games. That's amazing for soccer.
This is my only thing about him coming back that second time, was his first stint in Chelsea. He had exactly 100 goals.
Oh, man, that would have been a cool stat.
And he came back and scored 4 goals when he was essentially a substitute. But like, it was just one of those cool stats that in that dominant Chelsea era, he just has 100 goals. Hey, everybody, this is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say, give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.